I learn way more when I listen. And that's another Lee Steinberg, testament, the power of listening. Lee has been a great, teacher in that aspect forever. Really the power of listening, understanding what matters to someone.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Perfectly Mentored. I'm your host, Jason Portnoy. On this episode, we welcome back the CEO of Steinberg Sports Entertainment, the man who negotiated the largest sports contract in history. The all-around great human being, Chris Cabott, is back, and he's talking negotiating skills. He's talking business. He's talking tons of value on this episode. You're not going to want to miss this. Check it out. So Chris, welcome back. Thank you for doing this again. How are you?
Good to be here, man.
Last we spoke, you were the COO. Now you're the CEO. So congratulations and well-deserved. How has that new role been for you so far?
It's been good. I'm lucky. I started with this company as a consultant, and then I became the lead agent, then became the COO, then became the president, now the CEO. So I think when you've risen within, internally grown as an executive, you have a good idea for the past, the present, and the future, and the culture. And I feel really lucky. I have a lot of appreciation and for Lee for believing in me to take this role. And in some ways, I feel like I'm the CEO of Nike, where it's this amazing legacy company, and now the torch has been passed to you to put your twist on it and lead it into the next, decades. So it's been good. Obviously, we're looking to continue to provide excellent service to our athletes and families, and then continue to grow different verticals of opportunity for them and for their careers.
Awesome. So, how have you managed those role changes, right? Especially starting from, an agent and rising through the ranks. It's a completely different role. It's a completely different transformation. I know it didn't happen overnight for you. I know you put in the hard work to make it happen, but nonetheless, it's still a big change from going to agent to CEO. How have you been able to deal with all that?
Sure. It is a different thing. The reality of it is, as an agent, you have one focus, and that is that of your client, and making sure that that person is getting the growth that they need and taking care of them and their family. As an executive, as a chief executive officer, and as an agent, obviously I continue to have those responsibilities to our clients and families, but then I have relationships that I have to manage and handle with employees. I have to make sure that they're growing and they're blossoming, and they're feeling fulfilled. The company culture is important to me. I'm always vetting and looking at new things and new deals, and then working with our finance folks as far as that department. And we have an amazing VP of PR and media named Julia Farron, who I interface with constantly and daily, and working with her on that side of things. And Selwyn Roberts, who's our VP of branded content, working with him on the outward facing side of things, and working with Juliana and Mariah in the operations and the business and legal affairs and things like that. And Matt Steinberg and Dan Saffron and Samantha Sankovich and Sam Mirza and Cameron Foster, who are agents, and Selwyn's also an agent. So there's that side of things. So there's a lot more responsibility. Again, the nice thing here is having filled different roles in operations here, and having filled different roles as president, where I was essentially responsible for that overarching executive operation of the company. But now as a CEO, you're adding another layer of that, of vision, which is something I relish. I've always had a little bit of creative flair to me. It doesn't get to come out much because I'm usually so much in the depths and the trenches of the operations and service and things like that. But it's neat to be able to look at things and say, hey, there might be another way to do this. There might be a better way to do this. And a lot of that's what gave birth to the UKIPA relationship. When I was appointed CEO, I wanted to add different verticals of opportunity for our athletes. I reached out to a colleague of mine who was an agent at APA, and which is a Hollywood entertainment agency, a lot of film, TV, and music. And I asked him if he was interested in coming to SSE and bringing his book of business with him, but also mainly to bring scripted and unscripted opportunities and content to our clients. And he had said, well, UKIPA and Ron Burkle is buying APA or investing in APA. I should really say, and would you like to meet? And I said, I'd love to. So met with Ron and his staff and his team. And long story short, we were able to strike a partnership with him that provides greater resources, really unparalleled reach for all of our athletes and clients. So it's business as usual here, but just much greater reach and much greater opportunities when it comes to business, to real estate, to mentoring in those areas, to fashion with the sister you type of companies like the Lions, to scripted and unscripted opportunities and entertainment with APA. And there's just a variety of really incredible opportunities that come with that relationship. And I'm very thankful that we were able to bring it to our clients and families.
One of the things you touched on was creating a culture was super important for you. So, I mean, how do you go about doing that? I think that's what every business owner listening to this podcast or everyone in business always talks about: creating a company that has culture, that people want to come work there, they want to be a part of it. How do you actually go ahead and do that?
Sure. I mean, I think the reality of it is it's consistency. Sean McVay, the head coach of the Rams, is saying that I like that it's we, not me. And that's something that we talk about here too, is that the most important thing is serving our athletes and their families. That's numero uno. Everything else has to stop to make sure that that happens. The second thing is, the overall camaraderie and collegial nature of working with our team, that everyone treats each other with respect. We don't do drama here. If there's an issue, we talk about it, we figure out a solution, and we keep it moving. And, do what's best for the company. And I think in that pecking order, if you do what's best for the clients and the athletes, if you do what's best for your fellow colleague, if you do what's best for the company, and you do what's best for yourself last, you're always going to win and create something very sustainable and long lasting.
And then how do you, my last question about you taking over this role, because I find this fascinating, is how do you come in and now you're the new guy, right? You're the new guy with the new vision from a premier business, a premier agency, right? Already, a well-known thing. How do you come in? Like you said, it's like taking over the realms of taking over like Nike, for example, right? How do you come in and now you have to come and add your own spin to it? How do you balance that between honoring everything that Steinberg Sports has done to get to where it's at, and now coming in and saying, okay, here's what I'm going to put my own flavor, my own spin on this?
Well, I think it starts with Lee. I think it starts with the values of our chairman, who's obviously a trailblazer and a pioneer and a living legend in this space, created the sports agent industry and has done it so well for so long. And as decades have gone on, he's, now handed down the torch to some different folks, obviously me included, to help with that and the furtherance and the ongoing. And the good news for me is I'm not as much of the new guy. With sneeze. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Let's start over with that. Thank you. The good news for me is I'm not as much of the new guy. I started as a consultant here in 2014, built and grew. Before I even started to help on the professional side, Lee and I had a good solid friendship for a year. So it's been able to build and grow. But, the reality of it is that I think anytime you're given an opportunity to touch something and grow something, you look at what works and then you try to improve the things that may not. And you look to make things as streamlined and efficient as possible. If you've ever read the 48 Laws of Power, it talks about, not so much change, but improvement, enhancing what's already there. And I think that that's something that we do. And then where there are novel or unique ideas, you always want to tie it back to the foundation and the values, which, Lee has solidified so well that it makes it great. It makes it easy. I think something else too, though, is encouraging folks to come and bring new ideas. We work in an industry where it's so important to work with a sense of urgency. It's so important to communicate in real time. And it's also important to think above and beyond. The reality of it is we just had a successful NFT, non-fungible token that did really well. And that's opening doors for other colleagues and other athletes and here at the firm. And I encourage our staff, keep thinking, into the future. And, big kudos to Matt Steinberg in a staff meeting, Matt said, "Have you seen what's going on with NBA Top Shot?" And he was telling us all about that, and we started kind of chewing and think about it and said, "Hey, I had a colleague from the music industry. I started representing talent in 2003 in music as an entertainment attorney. And he had just done something successfully in the NFT space with a recording artist. And I called him and said, "Hey, see what NBA is doing with Top Shot. I saw what you're doing with music. Is there a way we can marry the two and do something with digital memorabilia?" So we did that. We're going to offer some more of those opportunities for guys. And I'm a big fan of that space. At the end of the day, there's a lot that's kind of unspoken of about it. I think people are still learning, but here's the best thing that I can say to you. If you think of the trading card market, if you think of the memorabilia market, when an athlete signs a trading card, an athlete signs a helmet, it's a one stop, it's a one shot. That athlete's paid for the signing, the athlete's paid to sign the card, and then that's it. There's no tracking of it. Sometimes there are people that come to those signings and authenticate, but there's really no encrypted technology. Well, with the NFT market, and the NFT is a digital asset. A non-fungible token is a digital asset. The pictures on your phone are NFTs. They're digital assets. The pictures on your Instagram feed are digital assets. The songs in your phone are digital assets. So it's an NFT is really any digital asset. But then there's this blockchain technology, and the blockchain technology allows for immediate authentication, immediate certification, allows for real-time tracking of sale and resale. So the beauty of it is any asset that gets sold through any of these blockchains, through any of these digital houses like Maker's Place or anything like that, that asset is now being tracked. And the owner of that asset has the ability to participate in sale and resale perpetually. And I think where you'll see it the most in sports is in the season ticket holders. When they sell to a third party or the secondary market, the team could never participate in that. Well, now it can through NFT technology. So I bring that up though, just as an example that I want our staff, and I want to encourage our staff to think big, to think wide, to think about what doesn't exist. Julia Farron has done an amazing job of growing and enhancing the Agent Academy, the Sports Career Conference. We're launching Agent Academy 2.0 next week, which for anyone who's interested in a career as an athlete agent, if they've been to our first Agent Academy, just kind of learn the background of the industry, and now want to learn how to put together a presentation deck, how to run a business, the real dollars and cents, really drill down deep. Well, she did an amazing job of taking an idea and making it real. And I love it when folks do that. And I love seeing them rewarded and grown and incentivized. And, just recently did a lot of one-on-one interviews with employees and said, and I don't even really like that word, staff, teammates, colleagues, but, what do you like about what you're doing? Where do you want to grow? And I feel like if we could continue to foster growth and we can continue to build people's skill sets, they're not going to want to leave. We're going to build something really incredible. Can I go off on a quick tangent?
Of course.
So my girlfriend, Laura Clark, is an amazing entrepreneur, extremely talented. She has a salon in Kansas City. She just took it to 8 chairs. It's beautiful. I bring her up because I think she's such a great leader. And she always says, "I want to be a leader, not a boss." In the salon industry, it's the industry my mom worked in. Usually what happens is salon owners do what's called a commission, where stylists come in, they use products, they use what's in the salon, they have their clientele. But the salon takes 60% in most cases of the payment from the client. So what's that really do? It puts the stylist in a position where immediately they want to leave. Immediately they want to get out of there. There's no culture, there's no sense of growth. Laura's business model is much different. She's essentially giving her stylists the opportunity just to rent their booths, and then all the upside is theirs. And it's brilliant. And I think when you're married to the idea of cultivating the best growth possible for your staff or for your team, just everyone wins. So That's the War and Peace answer to a short question. But I'm passionate about our people. I think we have amazing staff here at SSC, incredible executives. And I'm excited for their continued growth.
Love it. And so well said. But I want to talk about just the NFT side for a second. How do you stay like up to date on the opportunities from the endorsement side to things like NFTs? Do the players come to you? Is it your team coming to you? Is it just like one player sees another player do it and they want to do it? Like how do you stay up to date with all the opportunities that are out there for players to monetize and, make even more money aside from just doing what they do best and monetizing themselves in the off season? How do you help with that?
Man, I've always been a pavement pounder. I've always encouraged that. I had a really lucky opportunity. I took a year off between undergrad and law school to save money because growing up in the steel mill, growing up in the steel industry, was scared to have debt. So I worked 3 jobs, and I was lucky to work at a little place called MedStaff, which actually wasn't little. It was a really big healthcare recruiting firm. And at MedStaff, you were essentially cold calling healthcare professionals about healthcare jobs. So you were pounding the pavement. I mean, you were getting a call list and you were making those calls, and people would hang up on you and not interested. But every once in a while, you find someone that was. And I bring that up because through that experience, I just learned the real value of proactive work, proactive communication. And I'd say 90% of the endorsements that we've done and originated have been that way, have been looking at the businesses in a region, looking at the the business, the corporate partners of a team, and saying, hey, or a university, hey, let's marry this. Let's bring this together. Let's talk. Let's meet. Let's build a relationship. I think we talked a lot about that the last time. Let's build relationships. Let's not do transactions. As a result, things build and things grow. So the NFT side of things wasn't brought to us. The Patrick Mahomes NFT was the first ever digital memorabilia auction over NFT. We went with memorabilia as opposed to trading cards for a variety of reasons. Around the same time, Rob Gronkowski did the first NFT with cards, with digital trading cards, which was awesome, which was really cool. Kudos to Gronk and his team on doing that. But I think you have to stay ahead of opportunity. And we really love growing and cultivating careers here. We're career managers. They call us agents, but we really manage careers. So, being ahead that way means a lot to us. But at the same time, too, I mean, in the football space, for your rookies, you're going to have the trading cards. You're going to approach the Nikes, the Adidas, the Under Armour. You're going to approach the league partners. If you're not, you should. The Oakleys and the TurboTax and things like that. And, dig deep, build good relationships there with those brand partners and the folks that handle those accounts. But I love rolling up our sleeves and creating something innovative and new. And I think usually that's where you find the most growth and the most opportunity for folks.
I want to get a little bit tactical. I think when everyone thinks sports agent or agent, they think of negotiating and the hardcore negotiations and jumping in. So let's talk about negotiating for a second. I think it's a place where a lot of business owners get stuck. I think negotiations like sales happens in all aspects of life, right? You're always in sales and you're always negotiating something. Talk about what your mindset is when you walk into a negotiation.
I mean, what my mindset is usually, first of all, when I walk into a negotiation, I've spent hours, days, weeks, months preparing, knowing my side, knowing all the information. So if we're talking about player contract, obviously knowing what our guys have done inside and out, knowing their stats, knowing how they compare to others. Some cap guys in the league tease me about my charts and everything like that. But at the end of the day, like, I've never had anyone argue with our data. I've never had anyone argue with the stuff that we put in front of people. And that's just really knowing, really understanding the value of a player by looking at production history, tracking it over 1 season, 2 seasons, 3 seasons, 4, depending on where it's at, understanding how it compares with age, understand how it compares with other players. And then once we've done that and determine a range of value, then we break down the salary cap of the team we're going to be negotiating with. How do they do their deals? How do they have structure? And from that point, now we're walking in with, a very thick, level of preparation. Now I want to hear from the other side what they're looking to get out of the deal. I learn way more when I listen, and that's another Lee Steinberg, testament, the power of listening. Lee has been a great, teacher in that aspect forever. Really the power of listening, understanding what matters to someone. So at that point, I want to understand what they want to get out of it. So I want to understand what they want to get out of it. I'm going to be able to sell them better on what we're looking to get out of it. So if we can get what we want and they can get what they want, we're going to win. We're ultimately going to win. A lot of times, especially for teams, they have the salary cap. They have restrictions on a league year. They sometimes have cash restrictions, sometimes cash flow cycles. So if, for example, if I know that I can increase a signing bonus, if we're flexible with when it's paid out, maybe it's paid out over a couple installments. Well, if that helps, if the team has cash flow restrictions, but has a lot of cash, just periodical and cyclical, well, I know we can do well there. If the team is up against the wall on the salary cap, we can free up some cap space and guarantee some future years and offer guarantees and security to players in the game where there's often injury. We can do well there. So you want to prepare, you want to listen, and then you want to execute. You want to execute based on what matters the most to your client. Lee has always talked too about representing clients individually, customized to them. And I think that that's really important. It's another function of listening, but you will, if you prepare, if you listen, and then you work from the values of your client, you're going to do a good job.
And it's also, like you just said, becoming creative. I think a lot of people in negotiations and they have their way stuck in their mind and not prepared. They let little things kill deals that should never have killed the deal, right? They're not creative. Talk to me about your philosophy of making sure that when you leave a negotiation, if it doesn't go through, that you've done everything you can to make that deal happen.
I think that's a function of effort. Have you dug in? Have you done everything you can? Have you been creative? Have you worked hard? Have you tried to think from the other person's shoes? Have you communicated well with your client? If you've done all of those things, I think that's all you can do. Obviously, sometimes deals don't get done overnight. Sometimes deals take time. Sometimes deals get delayed. But, I love to negotiate. I love to prepare. I love to go back and forth. I'll tell you honestly, one of the best negotiations I ever did was recently, and it was with a home. I just recently purchased a new home, and we wanted to move in before the closing, which is kind of unheard of, but we took some risk. And the risk we took was that we would guarantee the earnest money. We increased the earnest money, we guaranteed it, that would be non-refundable unless, something with the home inspection showed the home was wrong. So what did we do there? We gave the seller some confidence that, hey, you know what? Worst case scenario, we're gonna, we'll make some money on this deal. I mean, I knew we weren't pulling out. So that was unique, but again, we were prepared. We had our money. We were ready to rock and roll. We were ready to close quickly, but we also wanted to move in quickly. And the buyer or the seller, what did he want? He wanted his money. We had it. What did he want? He wanted assurance. We had it. He wanted security that if something didn't, work out, that he made out on the deal. We gave him that. So, and then we executed. We were ready to rock and roll. So it's the same philosophy: prepare, listen, execute.
Poor real estate agent that had to go head to head negotiating with you, right? I don't. Different league, right there. That's like a heavyweight fighting a lightweight, right there.
No, we were lucky. We had a really great realtor who helped us. She did a fantastic job.
So, I mean, when do you know when it's time to walk away? So let's break this down. So imagine there's a business owner listening, right? Everyone, I think, needs to have their bottom line when they're going to walk away. But I think when you're starting a business or when you're just starting off or whatever it is, you're tied to trying to get the best deal and trying to do the best for you. In your mind, how do you draw that bottom line for you and say, all right, I'm prepared to walk away now?
it's even harder in this industry because we do it with clients. We do it with families, and there are times that terms change, and you it, you have to stick to your gut and stick to your guns. And I mean, if you're in a business where you're dealing with concrete and the price of concrete is X, and you're willing to pay Y, well, if you're really willing to pay Y, then that's your bottom line. It is what it is. But if you know your business and you trust your gut and you've done your homework and you've been prepared, I think something else too, you you know you see the long run, see the long range, you're going to be good. I think a critical part really of negotiating for business owners is really understanding their books, really understanding their finances. I'm not an accountant. We have them on site here, but I live in our numbers. I live in our numbers because numbers give me data, and data helps make decisions. And the fact that we have our numbers charted out, for years and years to go, if I decide to walk away from something, I know it's going to impact us in the short term and the long term.
I love that. I really do believe most business owners don't actually know their numbers, and they can't make decisions from that side of things. But you said something interesting, that you're dealing with not only the player but the families and things like that. So I guess my question is two parts, right? How do you manage your emotions during a negotiation, right? Imagine a business owner listening right now also sits there and says, what if the person I'm negotiating with says something that pisses me off or something like that? How do you manage your emotions? And then I guess the follow-up to that would be, not only do you have to manage yours, you now have to manage the other sides, because you don't want them to get angry, but you also have to manage your clients and their entire family's emotions during all this too. So I guess first part is, how do you manage yours? And then how do you take care of everyone else?
Yeah, so I joke around. I say you can't have a good negotiation without at least one flare up. These are oftentimes things where you're passionate about your side, the other party's passionate about their side, and the two things conflict. And at the end of the day, like that's going to happen. So sometimes there's a raise of a voice or inflection on words, and you just kind of have to, when it gets that way, you just kind of got to take a step back, let it settle down, let it cool down. 99.9% of the time, there's respect there at the root of it. Everybody's just working hard to get what they can get. I grew up on the East Coast. I'm an East Coast guy, so like that stuff doesn't doesn't really work me up. There's that line in that movie, Jerry Maguire. Rod Tidwell says, "You think I'm yelling? I think we're finally talking." And sometimes I'm kind of that way, so that doesn't really bother me that much. Where I feel some emotion is when I feel like someone's being stubborn for the sake of being stubborn, when I feel like someone doesn't recognize value, when someone doesn't recognize what someone's brought to the table and is just looking past it for the sake of looking past it. Another thing too, you could tell me anything as long as it's the truth. I mean, you could say, "Chris, that gap between your teeth, the ugliest thing I've ever seen in my life." That's fine. I have no problem with that. If that's your truth, I'm with it. I'm there all day with you. But I don't like it when folks aren't straight. We'll win with honesty, with losing anything else. But so, on the client side of things, I think part of managing emotions comes with managing expectations. If from the beginning you've kind of told them what to expect, then when you've been real, then I think that helps. I think another thing too is I think communication. You got to give folks the play-by-play. The play-by-play is neutral. It happened. It is what it is. You have to control what you can control.
So how do you manage that stubbornness? So like that's the thing that works you up. How do you then overcome it?
Time is the closer of all deals. Anytime there's a deadline involved, ultimately it's a lot of times it's the timing that produces the stubbornness. So recognize the timing, understand where timing gives you strength, understand where the timing gives the other side strength, and then find the sweet spot and use it to your leverage. And we work in an industry too, where you go into sometimes a contract here and there's negotiations. Well, you may not, the greatest motivator for that team is that player walking out the door, and that comes at the end of the year. So you may go up against some nonsense, throughout the year. And frankly, no one likes that because the team doesn't want the player to feel upset, and the player doesn't want to have to be thinking about anything else but playing. And that's the case where you want to make sure your guys have insurance. You want to make sure that they're prepared. You want to make sure they have everything they could possibly need if things drag on.
So when the other side's being stubborn, you just sit there and take a step back and be like, all right, we know there's a deadline. We'll wait it out with you.
Yeah. I mean, there's that. Plus, too, I mean, if you've done your homework, if you're prepared, you know the value. And if they're not willing to meet the value, you're not going to do a deal.
Wrap up with this question. Let's talk about leverage for a second, right? For the listeners who may be starting their business and don't think they have leverage, what advice do you have, on gaining the upper hand or gaining leverage during a negotiation?
So I read a book one time. It talks about a man in in solitary confinement. He's in prison. He owns nothing. This man would seem to have no leverage, but he wants certain things from the guard, the prison guard. And, in order to do certain things from the prison guard, the guard's got to leave. The guard's got a wife and a family and a kid to go home to. Well, he wants to leave on time. So what's the inmate do? He starts to bang his head on the wall minutes before the guards has to leave. And this sounds a little much, but now he's bleeding. And now the guard has to do paperwork and call in a medic. Now the guard can't leave. Guard wants to go home. Well, the next day when the guard comes back, now the inmate's saying, hey, if you don't give me these privileges, I'm going to do the same thing every day until you do. Well, what's the guard do? He's got to play ball now. So I think at the end of the day, you can always create leverage. The 48 Laws of Power is a great book to read. I think that's one of the best books when it comes to understanding and creating leverage. Obviously, you have to use it for good, don't use it for evil. But you can always create leverage. Sometimes you create leverage by absence, by not showing up, by not being somewhere. You see a lot of times in sports contracts about holdouts and things like that. You can create leverage that way. So there's always leverage. Sometimes you have to create it. Sometimes you have to find it.
Chris, thank you so much for doing this. I love chatting I love chatting with you and following you on your journey. And kudos to you. You run a great operation. You have a great staff. Julie and I got a chance. Julie and I got a chance to talk before this. So kudos to you. And congrats again. I don't think I wished it to you online, but I don't think I had a chance to personally wish it to you. Congrats on the CEO role. Well deserved again. And for the listeners who want to learn more and want to find out more about you and what you guys offer, how can they reach you?
Oh, sure. I mean, it's not hard. I mean, obviously all the socials at Chris Cabott, CHRISCABOTT. And then, emails chris@steinbergsports.com, STEINBERG sports.com.
Perfect. Chris, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Always great to see you, man.
Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want, check out our most recent video over here. And this one is the one YouTube thinks you'll like. But if you really enjoyed watching, please do me a favor, like and subscribe over here. Thank you so much. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want, check out our most recent video over here. And this one is the one YouTube thinks you'll like. But if you really enjoyed watching, please do me a favor, like and subscribe over here. Thank you so much.